Welcome to the Excelsior Health Podcast. This is the podcast for busy professionals and busy parents who are battling weight gain, high stress, and a drop of self-confidence. What we do, guys, on this podcast is we break down the complicated aspects of fitness, and we give you guys simple strategies and tactics so that way you can start to transform your health and rebuild your lifestyle. I'm your host today, Coach Cory Fernandez. I'm the owner of Training for Warriors Saga. And today, guys, we're going to continue our mini-series on the 5 pillars of Excelsior Health. So again, what is the 5 pillars of Excelsior Health? This is our tool that we use at Training for Warriors Saga to help guide our students on their transformation journey, right? So back in, 2020, in the midst of COVID, I was brainstorming and I was thinking, like, how can I better coach people not only in their strength training, but also their nutrition habits, their mindset, how to recover, the social aspects of transforming your health. And I created this framework to teach people, hey, where to start, where maybe is your deficiencies, what are things that you are really good at. So today, we're going to keep that conversation going. And last week we talked about training and movement. Today we're going to talk about nutrition habits. So before we dive deeper into nutrition habits, I just want you guys to always understand what the Excelsior kind of word means. Excelsior means chasing excellence, right? There's no such thing as us being perfect. But if we choose to use this framework and understand these 5 pillars, and we begin to raise the standards in those key areas, you're going to produce transformational results. So the overarching concept is we have these 5 big targets when it comes to our health, which I already mentioned: training and movement, nutrition habits, rest and recovery, building a resilient mindset, and a positive environment. All right. And within those pillars is what I call these elements. So these are these kind of key things that you got to focus on. So today we're going to deep dive into the elements of the nutrition habits so that way you guys can kind of see, okay, these are 4 areas that I might need to improve on in my journey. All right. So as I mentioned with the training and movement side of things, to me, that's like step 1 of the journey is exercise, working out, what we call at Training for Warriors training. This is probably the best thing someone can do for personal development. I mean, I guess the only other thing I would argue with that is maybe reading, but like there's so many things about training that just make you a better person overall. Going off the top of my head right now, hey, delayed gratification, right? That's the thing about working out. You can do a hard ass workout, but then you look in the mirror and you look the same. So it teaches you have to be aggressive with your action and your execution on a day-to-day basis, but you have to be patient with the results and understand that, hey, I'm not going to see the changes right now, but down the road, I'm going to be rewarded with these changes. The other aspects of both training and movement that I love is like teaches you to do hard shit, right? If you want to grow and develop into a successful, but I would also say happy, a high functioning, high performing person, then guess what? You're going to have to understand how to go through difficulty. You're going to have to understand how to go through obstacles. And that's a big part of what working out is you're literally putting your body under stress and discomfort. And after you refuel yourself with food and hydration, that's when you come back and get the results. So now we're going to tap into that pillar number 2, which a lot of people, guys, they'll say, man, nutrition, it's like 80% of what you got to do. And I'd say, yeah, you're probably right. I don't know if it's 90%, 80%, 70%. I think it differs for different people based on how hard you train and some of these other factors and maybe even genetics. But nutrition habits is one of the most important things that you can do for your health. So I'll give you guys just a little background on myself. I don't think I came from a family that eats super healthy, because most people in my family aren't healthy. I would say they're unhealthy, but we also didn't eat like terrible. It wasn't like fast food every day and things like that. But going back, like in university, if I go back then, before I kind of had the fitness coach mindset, part of my nutrition was drinking juice. Like I would go to the grocery store and I would buy like Five Alive juice. I would buy Tropicana, Fruité. Like I just loved juice. I barely drank water. The only time I would drink water was when I was playing sports. You know what I'm saying? So that would be in practice or in games. But I would, the amount of sugar when I look back and say, holy crap, that was so disgusting. Well, how did you do that? I just didn't know better. Food wise, I would typically eat lots of protein, things like chicken, things like salmon. I would cook those on my own. Um, but, I would eat out a lot too. Whether it was Starbucks, it was fried foods, pitas, late night foods. But the point I'm trying to show you guys is the reason why I was still probably fit and lean and healthy is I had so much movement. Being an athlete, I was working out, I was practicing multiple times a day, training. Now, that's not to mean that I was being healthy on the inside, because again, those foods can be very damaging, but that was the lifestyle that I had. But as I finished school and now I became, transitioning to just being a personal trainer, I started to see weight increase because, again, my physical activity went down. And this is typical for the busy professional and busy parent is, hey, as you, age from when you leave your 20s, you go to your 30s. Definitely when you go from your 30s and your 40s, what happens is we have more stress in our life, right? We're moving less. We're driving our cars. We're in our 9 to 5. We're running our business. So you don't have as much movement. And for a lot of people, they just don't put as much attention to movement. And each year it could be gaining, 2 to 3 pounds. And then when you look back in a decade, you're like, wow, I just gained 30 pounds and I'm a completely different person. And now if you even move forward long term, for a lot of people that are in their 50s and 60s and 70s, now these chronic diseases become even more apparent. And it's because we didn't make a change, to our movement, but even more important, we didn't address our nutrition. And these habits of drinking too much alcohol, sugary beverages, processed foods, high fats, high carbs, minimal protein, they now catch up with us. And now we're dealing with obesity. We're dealing with diabetes, high cholesterol, potential heart disease, a lot of metabolic cardiovascular diseases. And then even some things, guys, that's even more apparent now is things like Alzheimer's and dementia. So what I want you guys to be aware of is when I'm talking about nutrition habits, a huge reason that we spend so much time for it is, of course, our clients, they want to lose body fat, right? They want to be more muscular. But the other reason why your nutrition habits are so important, it's for your longevity and it's for your health. So if you want to be proactive against fighting against some of these chronic diseases, that impact how you live, then you really, really, really want to pay attention to your nutrition habits. All right. So I guess where I'm going to start with is element number 1. Okay. And what this is hydration, and it's eating real food. So let's start with water. All right. Water is so important for so many reasons. If your goal is fat loss, you're definitely going to want to drink a lot of water. But for a lot of us as busy professionals and parents, guys, we need energy. We need energy to take care of our kids. We need energy to show up to work. We need energy to run our business, to think critically, to stay mentally alert throughout the day. So a big part of hydration is just having the energy. Other things you might know about water, or you might not know, is, hey, water is going to transfer a lot of the nutrients that we get through our food through the different parts of our body and just make all the processes work a little bit more efficiently. So what I would say is a good rule of thumb that we teach our clients is you want to have half of your body weight in ounces, right? So I'm about 225 pounds. I'm going to consume, anywhere from 100 to 120 of ounces of water each day. So that's what I would say is very adequate amount. Could you go a little bit more than that? I think a little bit more is always better, right? So another example, 150-pound woman. Hey, a good amount for you is roughly going to be about 75 ounces of water per day. Okay. So another thing that you can do, guys, is take your favorite water bottle. And I recommend if you're starting this new habit of hydration, it's pick like one or two go-to water bottles and know what's the total amount that water bottle is giving you. If you constantly have different amounts throughout the day, it can be tough to track yourself, you know? So I have like a go-to cup that's about 20 ounces. So I know that, hey, if I have 5 of those in a day, I'm pretty damn close to hitting my 100 ounces and I'm doing pretty good. Okay. So have that consistency for yourself so that way you can track it that, hey, I just need to get 5 of these bottles throughout my day. Another place that I would start with hydration, guys, is the first thing in the morning. It actually really surprises me how much people don't do this. And it's one of the simplest things that you can do that can start your day with more energy and also increase the likelihood that you hit that total of ounces of water throughout the day. Because let's face it, if you miss it in the morning, we get distracted, we get busy, and the last thing you want to do is drink a bunch of water late at night, which will disrupt your sleep because you got to get up and pee. So, how this would work is you wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you wash your face, you get on your clothes. The first thing you do is when you get downstairs or when you get to your kitchen is you open up that fridge, you fill up that bottle of water, and even better, it's already filled up the night before. And now you sit there in peace. This might take you it might take you 5 minutes, and you literally just down that water. All right. Think of it as giving your brain, even your internal, parts of your body, giving it a bath so that way you are ready to go. Right. Everybody is aware of like, hey, man, I got to take a bath, hopefully every day, but sometimes some people do it twice a day. But I got to take a bath to clean myself. Think about it as cleaning your brain, cleaning your cells, and giving it the fuel it needs to work the way it's supposed to. So that's a big thing that I coach people on is before you go to the coffee, before you go to the tea, before you go to the Rockstar, the Monster, or the Celsius, have your water first. And you're going to find over time, you're going to be less dependent on those things because you're getting your water. All right. Other times that I would say is super important, guys, for your hydration during your workout. You're going to be sweating, right? Especially if you're training at a right intensity. So you want to replenish some of that water that you're going to be losing. All right. So during that workout is another great opportunity to finish at least 20 ounces of water. All right. So let's say I'm the person who trains at, 5:30 a.m. or 6:30 a.m. That's a popular time in our program. I finished 20 ounces before I showed up to the gym. I came to the gym and I hit another 20 ounces. It's now potentially 7 a.m. and I've already gotten 40 ounces of water. I'm almost 50% my water intake. I'm going to be feeling pretty damn good. I'm going to be feeling pretty alert. Other times that I would add your water intake in to just make sure you're doing it is when you're eating your meals. Okay. So, most of us, we should be probably having at least 3 meals per day. Some people might choose to have 2 bigger meals. Some people might have 5 times they eat throughout the day, where it might be 3 kind of bigger size meals, 2 snacks. Everybody's going to be different based on preference and goals. However, the typical person, I'm going to say you're going to have 3 meals. So again, if you can have that bottle of water or that cup of water before you're going to have your meal, it's going to have a great impact. There's something that we came across here at Training for Warriors. It was a study, and they called it the water trick. And pretty simple. They just compared is when somebody consumed, about 16 to 20 ounces of water before they had their meal, they ended up consuming about 13% less calories. Now, again, if you kind of compound that through 3 meals in a day, you compound that in a week, you compound that in a month, that's a lot of calories that you're saving that can equate to you losing more body fat over weeks, over months, over the course of a year. So from a hydration standpoint, guys, this is a simple fix. Start your day with water. Make sure you're consuming it during your workout or some sort of physical activity like sports or after a big walk. And then when you're about to eat any good size meals is make sure we consume water beforehand, and it's going to help you be more full and consume less calories. All right, guys. So Now, moving over to still element number one, when we're talking about hydration and eating real food. Now, when we talk about eating real food, it's really about quality foods. So you might hear people say, hey, plant-based, basically that's saying, fruits and vegetables. I think those are amazing, but I'm a big advocate of animal-based proteins, so things like chicken, steak, fish, eggs. I think those are the best, most efficient ways to build muscle, and they're just really good for your overall health. So when it comes to eating real food, I like to say eat whole foods and eat real foods. So things as close to the source as possible, right? So it's like if you're having grilled chicken versus fried crispy breaded chicken, the fried crispy breaded chicken, you're going to get a lot more fat content in that, and it's not going to be as healthy as grilled chicken. All right. So think about what types of protein you're eating, what types of food you're eating, and get them as close to the real source as possible. So let's walk this through. In our program, we have a tool that we call the Warrior 20. And pretty much what it is, it's like the 20 foods that they give you the best bang for your buck, right? So meaning they're going to give you the most nutrients, the most vitamins. They're going to allow you to get the most macronutrients from the foods. And they're going to be just giving you energy. They're going to allow you to build muscle. They're going to allow you to be more efficient at losing body fat. They're also going to fight against inflammation, right? Especially chronic inflammation. So I'll give you a couple of examples that would be on the Warrior 20. And I already said a couple of these, but like steak, chicken, eggs, salmons, tunas, all the types of fishes you can think of. And then we go into that, and that's more of our protein section. You can think of carbohydrates. So if we start with fruits, right, then we go into our vegetables. So all types of vegetables. I'm not going to go through the list. But then our starchy carbs, so like sweet potatoes, amaranth, yams. You could even put rice in there, quinoa. These are all great examples. Also within the Warrior 20, you have things like water, like we already talked about. Green tea is a great other source that we use. I don't know if I'm missing anything, but you guys catch my drift. Like everybody knows those are all good sources of quality foods. And if most of your food, and I would say like 80 to 90% of the food you're eating looks like that, that's pretty high quality foods. Now, let me give you guys some low quality foods. Things that would be alcohol is definitely going to be on that list, but like, I'm going to start with beverages, Coca-Cola, pop, juices. Now let's go to frappuccinos and big dairy beverages. Now, other things would be like a lot of processed foods, right? So packaged foods. So chocolate bars, chips, cereals. I would even put in protein bars in there. Like protein bars are okay. I eat them, but there shouldn't be. I wouldn't put them on the high quality side, especially most protein. They're starting to get better with some of the choices out there. Other options would be fast food, right? Things that are very quick and convenient and greasy, and a lot of other things that are added to it. So the point that I want you guys to understand is you're going to eat foods that have very low nutritional value and they're really high in calories. When you eat those things, especially in high volume, it's a recipe to gain a lot of body fat, have low amounts of muscle on your body, but then it's also like energy-wise, you're going to be very low energy. Inflammation, meaning like pains and aches in your body, is going to be that much higher. Those are all things that you're going to expect when you're having those foods. Versus when you're having these quality foods, it's going to put you in a position where you're losing body fat, you're building muscle, you're feeling more vibrant, more energy, you recover quicker from your workouts. That's the point. Now, I also want to go in from a calorie standpoint. just by making the swap. Like if you're someone who's starting the journey, and this is why I'm spending so much time with the eating real food. If you just start doing this, go from someone who drinks a lot of pop, has a lot of alcohol, frappuccinos, a lot of liquid calories. And now you just like 90% of the time you shift to having water, you're going to lose a substantial amount of body fat and your energy is going to go through the roof just by that swap. And then on the same end, if you go from a lot of fast food, a lot of packaged food, a lot of fried foods, and now you go to, hey, I'm going to put on my plate quality protein. I'm going to make sure I always have 1 to 2 servings of veggies. And I'm going to have some good choices of carbs like sweet potato, rice, oatmeal. Man, you're going to already see such a difference in terms of your body fat and your muscle. And the reason being is the foods on the right, the quality sources, they have so much more vitamins and minerals and nutrients, but they're also lower calories. And it's going to allow you to actually eat more frequently because the volume of the calories from those food. So I'll try to give everybody an example. You might have a meal that has a bag of chips, a donut, maybe it's chicken fingers and French fries. And that right there, for someone like, they might say, I barely eat, but that's what they ate. That right there might equate to 1,900 calories. And that's not a problem eating 1,900 calories, but that wasn't a lot of food to keep you full. But now we go to the other side, and this person has a steak, and they have sweet potatoes, and they have 2 servings of broccoli. That plate right there, that might equal, maybe 900 calories if it's a big steak. That's friggin' filling. Now they still have 900 calories to keep eating. So now they might keep going. They say, okay, well, I'm going to have 2 fists of spinach, but I'm also going to have some salmon. That's a whole nother meal. That plate that I just described, that might be close to 500 calories. So they still got 400 calories left. Now they might decide, you know what? I'm going to have a cup of coffee. That's going to be like 10 calories, but I'm going to have a cookie in there as well. That might be 300. Look how much food that person had because they switched the quality. And that's a big shift that a lot of people don't realize when they say, man, I'm eating more food than ever and I'm losing body fat and I'm feeling great. So this is step 1 that I coach people on, and what we do at Training for Warriors and with the 5 pillars of Excelsior Health is, hey, let's hydrate with water. Let's reduce the amount of calories we're getting from beverages, and let's make a shift that 80 to 90% of the time we're eating real foods. A last little point that I'll make in this element, it's just being intuitive. It's being, just present in the moment with your food. If you sit down and you're chewing your food a little bit slower, you're taking time to eat your food without being on your phone, without watching TV, it's going to allow you to probably consume and enjoy your food, but just eat less. Where a lot of times, think about the food we eat. We're like watching stuff, we're watching this, and you don't even realize how much you're overeating. All right. So that's going to be element number 1. Already for so many of our clients, just focusing on that. And I guess a last little point I'll add in there, we call it a warrior meal. If you're ever like, man, I don't know if I'm eating good, guys, the simplest thing you could do is create a meal, have, if I'm a girl, 1 serving of protein. What would that look like? 1 palm. Put that on the plate. 1 cupped hand of starches. 2 fists of veggies. Add, a serving of fat. So that means a tablespoon of some sort of flavor or a sauce. That right there is a very healthy meal. If I'm a guy, very simple, guys. Just add 2 servings of protein, 2 servings of carbs. If you follow that sort of template, you are going to be seeing amazing results. Now, down the road, are you going to maybe have to be a little bit more mindful of your calories? Of course. But for people who just are starting the journey, just doing that will make a world of your difference with how you feel, you look, and you perform. All right. Now, element number 2 is going to be tracking portions and macros. So to me, this is the most important element if someone is in a very unhealthy weight and body fat percentage and they want to change their weight, they want to change their body fat percentage, they want to change their physique, they want to look more toned, they want to have more muscle mass. So I could spend a whole podcast going into this. I'm going to try to give you guys a little crash course over here. All right. So, for example, things that we want to pay attention to is our macronutrients. So what those are, it's your protein, it's your carbohydrates, and it's your fats. Now, there are so many things that each of those do, but to just give you guys a general understanding, protein is so important for building muscle. Okay, so we really want to make sure we're consuming enough protein. But protein just makes sure that so many things in our body work properly. Our body is essentially made of proteins. Okay, the next thing, carbohydrates. Think of carbohydrates as energy source, fuel source. So if you're someone who's performing at a high level, you could leverage the right carbohydrates to help you be, more fueled to perform at a high level. All right. The third one is our fats. And sometimes people get confused, like, what? Like, I'm eating fat, but I'm losing fat. I think what they should have done is put dietary fat, so people know you're talking about the food you're eating. And then on the other side, it's body fat. So yes, eating dietary fat is very good for you. It's just focusing on the right type. And dietary fat is going to help you absorb the vitamins and the minerals and make all the functions of your body work that much better. Okay, so that's a very general overview on why we need to consume those. Now, the question would be, which one is more important? They're all important, but if I had to kind of prioritize one, I would say powerful protein. I think most people in our, American, Canadian, North American diet, we have high amounts of carbohydrates, high amounts of fats. And the reason being is those things are so tasty. So most of these quick fix foods, they're just packed with carbs and fats, right? But good sources of protein, most people are vastly under consuming their protein. So I would say most guys, we're probably consuming 60 to 70 grams of protein per day. Women, it could be 30 to 50 grams. And guys, it's just not enough, especially if you want to change your physique and you want to change the way you perform, you got to eat more. So that's where I would put your attention to, guys, is protein. How much? 0.8 to 1 gram of your desired body weight. So give you guys a couple examples here. If I'm a 150-pound woman, you could have 150 grams of protein. Now, that might be a lot if you're starting your journey, so you might want to go on the 0.8 side. Off the top of my head, I think that would be more closer to 120 grams of protein, right? Catch my drift. So if I'm a bigger guy, I'm 200 pounds, hey, maybe 200 grams of protein is going to be fantastic for you. It might be a tough place to start, so you might drop to more 170, 180, and that's going to be great. Another way to look at your protein is if you have these numbers, we do have that in our program. Other people might not have a tool that does, is just know what your lean body mass is. So that's basically taking and removing the pounds of body fat on you. Your lean body mass is your muscle and your water. That would tell you a sufficient amount of protein to have. All right. So I know for me, I'm about 225 pounds. My lean body mass is probably around 180-ish. So if I'm having at least 180 grams of protein, that's a pretty good amount. All right. So that's where we want to track. Now, I'm going to give you guys a little crash course about tracking macros. Okay. So this is a simple rule that you can follow. If you want to lose fat, you got to be in a calorie deficit. If you want to build muscle mass and size, you really want to put on weight, you got to be in a calorie surplus. If you're happy with your weight, but you just want to be more leaner, basically you want to be in calorie maintenance. Change it, staying where you are with your calories. It's just making sure your protein is at a right amount. And then now your performance, meaning you're stronger with your weights and you're getting faster, those things improve. That's going to change your body. But for the sake of most of our clients that are listening to this, hey, you want to lose body fat. So what you want to do is take your current weight, multiply it by 10. This, for most people, is going to put you in a calorie deficit. So for an example here, I have a 180-pound woman. I'm multiplying it by 10. So now her calorie deficit is going to be 1,800 calories. Okay. So that's going to be a really important number that we pay attention to, that if we're tracking. The next important thing that we're going to pay attention to is the amount of protein. So for this woman, we're following that same, kind of protocol of 0.8 to 1. So for her, of her desired weight, so she probably wants to be around 130 pounds. So she wants to lose 50 pounds. So the amount of protein that I put for her is 130 grams. So with 130 grams, the amount of calories that is, 1 gram of protein is 4 calories. All right. It is what it is, just as if you're asking why. So 130 times 4 is 520 calories. So now 520 calories of that 1,800 is being allocated to protein. Those are like the two most important numbers that you're tracking. Okay. So for example, the remaining amount of calories is going to be 1,280. It doesn't matter how much goes to fat, how much goes to carbs. It's all preference. As long as you're falling under that 1,800 calories, it's A-okay. Now, where it comes a little bit more discipline is some people might prefer to have more carbs because maybe they are extremely active. Usually athletes prefer to have more carbs because it helps fuel them. Maybe you have an intolerance, right, to gluten, and you just don't feel good because, your insulin spikes. Maybe you're dealing with diabetes and you got to just control that a little bit. You might more prefer to have high fats. I want everybody to understand it's preference. As a coach, typically what I'll do is I'll take those remaining 1,200 calories that I said that is left over after the protein. I'll typically go 50-50. 50% will go to the carbs, 50% will go to the fat. So what that would look like is 640 calories of carbs, 640 calories of fats, and 1 gram of carbs is 4 calories. So if I divide that by 4, that means this woman has the ability to now consume 160 grams of carbs. That's a lot. That's a great amount. And, if I were to share that with most clients, they would be like, oh my God, what? That's way too much. I never eat that. You eat way more than that. Trust me. All right. And then when it comes to fats, that's 640 calories of fats. 1 gram of fat is 9 calories. That's why you got to be mindful. Like, fats are very calorie dense. That leaves us with 71 grams of fat. So if we just figured out those macros, what it comes down to is this person is having 1,800 calories, and it's going to be 520 calories of protein, which is 130 grams. It's going to be 640 calories of carbs, which is 160 grams of carbs. 640 calories of fats, which is 71 grams of fat. That would be the macros. And if this person tracked these and eat this food on a consistent basis, one, she's going to lose weight. More importantly, she's going to lose fat, but she's going to preserve her muscle and she's going to have this toned, strong looking physique. And it's going to allow her to lift heavy, sprint, do all the things she's going to want to do in the performance side. Now, the hard part is tracking those. So there's different ways. Obviously, one of the best, most accurate is weighing your food. For some people, that's not practical. For other people, it's easy for them. Other ways is using technology and being able to scan foods. Other things is using things like meal prep and even just tracking, like looking at the back and seeing the nutritional value of foods and like making notes in your phone of, okay, this meal came up to 600 calories. What's the amount of protein that I'm extracting from it? All right. Other ways is what we teach, and who kind of made this popular is precision nutrition. So we use that model. It's using your palm, your fist, your thumbs to give a pretty estimation of where you are with your calories. So as a good place to start with, your palm for most people on average is going to be about 25 grams of protein, anywhere from like 20 to 30. I like to just use 25, right? So that's very simple. 25 grams, my palm. If I'm measuring my chicken, my salmon, my steak, so forth. If I'm going to use carbs, a cup 10, same thing, is going to be about 25 grams of starchy carbs. So that would be sweet potatoes, oatmeal, rice. Those fall under that category. Now, fats is a little bit different because remember, it's a little bit more dense. So one thumb or one like teaspoon, that would be the equivalent of like, I'm thinking it's going to be close to about 9 grams. Okay. So, for example, the amount of calories on average, guys, on average, that I want you to realize is my palm is going to basically be about 100 to 120 calories on average. So if you're at like a home cooked meal and there's food on the plate, you could look at your palm and say, okay, there's 2 portions of protein here. This is giving me 120, 240 calories. Carbs, okay, I have 2 portions of starch. I got 2 pieces of bread. Okay, this is about another 240 calories. Hey, this plate is about 480 calories right now. I got 2 servings of veggies. Most veggies, especially greens, very, very low calories. So you might not add that into the equation. But let's say you have a serving of sauce. I would use that as 120 calories. Now, this overall meal, I think we're at about 600 calories. So again, this gives you direction. It's not so much perfection, but part of losing body fat and part of making sure you're eating the right quantity is tracking either your macros, your portions, or tracking your habits, right? So again, the key habits that we talk about in our program, we have something called the 8 habits of a winning warrior. It's, hey, how many workouts are you doing per week? For us, we say 3 to 4. How many walks? We encourage people for 30 to 45 minutes every single day. Are you getting 6 to 8 hours of sleep? Are you drinking half of your body weight in ounces for water? Are you, in an eating window of 8 to 12 hours per day? These are some of the habits that we pay attention and we get our people to track. Okay, so that's element number 2, which it's probably one of the hardest skills. But there's this quote, and I probably have said it on this podcast so many times: the treasure you seek is behind the cave you're scared to go into. So for a lot of people, they will just not go through this difficulty of making mistakes and learning how to track because it's uncomfortable. But then they're always going to be stuck in this state of like not being as fit and as healthy and as lean as they want because they just never practiced it enough. They never just were like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to track it and I'm going to write down everything I eat. Once you do it for a long enough time, you have the understanding of the worth of foods and you kind of understand your rhythm of, hey, how many meals a day? What types of foods are best for me? So it's worth making that investment. Now, once somebody has shredded down and maybe they've spent months and quarters and even maybe sometimes years off and on in a calorie deficit, the next element that we have, it's called reverse dieting. So this is not something that we coach a lot of our clients on, but it happens. And when someone has had such great results in our program, it's about helping them reintroduce more food, but strategically. So the worst thing you want to do is what's called like a dirty bulk. It's just like, yeah, man, I need to gain muscle and I need to gain weight. Let me just eat donuts and let me just eat all this crap and do it in a quick period of time. You're not going to gain muscle that way. You're just going to gain body fat. That's a waste of time. So what reverse dieting is when you've spent a long time dieting, tracking your food, reducing your calories. And for a lot of us, where we reduce those calories usually comes in the form of carbohydrates, right? Let's say a woman, when she started her journey, like the one that we said, the 180-pound woman, she's now 130 pounds. But now she's at this point where she's maybe eating 1,300 calories. That's a low amount. And you don't want to like live life just only having that amount. So now what we might do is we're going to reintroduce more food. So what reverse dieting is we're going to increase her calories by about 200 calories on a bi-weekly time period. So now what we're going to say is, okay, we're going to consume 1,500 calories, and that might mean 1 or 2 servings more of carbs for her. And what's cool about this is as you do it methodically, sometimes this can be harder than tracking your losing body fat because you can't go too quick, is you see that you're rebuilding your metabolism. This person is getting to eat more food, but they're basically maintaining their body fat percentage. And now what the beauty is over time of increasing, they have more energy. They feel better. So that means they can lift heavier, they can run longer, they can step up their performance. And that's when people really see some big gains. So what might happen is over like a 12-week period, this person might have rebuilt that 1,300 calories to, let's say, 1,500, 17, 18, and maybe 1,900 calories is when they started to see just a little bit of body fat being compromised, but not substantial. And that's really, really an amazing place to be at. Is as a woman, you're eating 1,900 calories, you're training hard, you're enjoying the foods you're eating, and you have this lean body with great amount of muscle mass. That's the purpose of that. So when you see a lot of fitness professionals eating a lot of food, it's because they've gone through that process of, yeah, there was a stage where they dieted down, but because they specialize in strength training and because they took the time to learn their nutrition habits, now they're strategically have eaten more food, and it's making a world of a difference. For a lot of women, that's when you see they're slimmer, and like, yeah, they have this nice skinny, I don't like saying nice skinny, but they have this slim frame, but then you see them maybe over a 2 or 3 year period and they're more voluptuous, but it's like their butt got bigger, their legs, their quads, their hamstrings, they have a little bit more muscle. It's because they've introduced more calories over time while being very consistent with their quality, their protein, and their strength training. All right. Last but not least, guys, one of the elements that is important in the journey is supplementation. Now, I think people put way too much attention to supplements in the beginning, but really what you want to do is think of supplements as like the icing of a cake or like the sprinkles. You got to have, the flour, you got to have the base, you got to have all these other things that you put into it that makes the cake, and then you're putting these finishing touches on it. So supplements are meant to kind of fill in the gaps of what we don't get maybe with our food and our nutrition. And I think now more than ever, because of the quality of our food, more people need supplementation because it's just like our food quality is just really poor. So make sure before you spend a bunch of money on supplements that you think that's going to fast track your process. Am I eating real food? Am I eating protein? Am I tracking my foods? But some of the supplements that we recommend, I think a good protein powder is always good. A whey isolate protein, I think, is the best way to go for most people. Some people might not like it. There's all different types of protein options that you can use. But for most people, a whey isolate protein is really good. How much should you have of that? I would say anywhere from 1 to 3 scoops of protein per day is perfectly fine. On the high end, I've had periods where I was having 4 scoops. If you're a bigger guy and you're trying to really hit your protein totals, I think that's fine. But you want to have more of your protein coming from real food. So just think like 1 to 3 scoops of protein per day is definitely all right. Typically, a scoop for most proteins is going to be about 25 grams. All right. So just try not to get all of your protein from a processed source like protein powder. But the whole purpose of protein powder is to make it convenient that you get to your daily total, because it's hard to eat steak and fish and all these things. It just makes it easier for you to do that. Another supplement that I think is super important, creatine, right? Creatine is fantastic. It's probably one of the most researched supplements there is. So you guys can simply Google, ChatGPT. You can see so much content about it. It's extremely safe, right? So whether you're the athlete who's trying to maximize performance, or you're the busy professional that's in their 40s and 50s that just, hey, you want to make sure you're preserving your muscle. You want to give yourself every opportunity to build strength, but you also want to make sure you're taking preventative measures for your cognitive development. Creatine is going to do that. So creatine, what the recommendation for most people is 5 to 10 grams per day. How you could have your creatine, you could throw it in your shake. You could throw it in pre-workouts. I like to do plain creatine, and I literally just put it in my coffee, mix it, and I consume it each day. So creatine is really, really going to help you with your performance. It's going to help you be stronger. If you're getting stronger in the gym, it's going to allow you to build more muscle, or at least preserve your muscle. And now, because it's so popular, especially with women and men, and especially in older populations, it's seeing it's really, really beneficial for cognitive development. All right. Other ones, guys, that I would say fish oil is very good. There's so much benefit to eating good quality fats. Sometimes people don't like eating fish itself. So having a supplement like fish oil can kind of fill in the gaps. Other ones, vitamin C and vitamin D, those are going to really help with your immune system and just being proactive. If your immune system is weak, you're going to get sick more. You're going to have slower recovery. So, supplementing that along with eating, our fruits and our vegetables, that's going to help us get an adequate amount of vitamin C and D. There's other ones out there, guys, like magnesium, and there's probably other people that are more qualified to talk about those, but those are usually the ones that we steer our clients to when it comes to supplementation. So hopefully, guys, this gave you some direction, this episode. I know that's a lot, but nutrition is like, man, if you put the work in, it's probably going to give you the biggest return on the way you look, right? From lean, tone, healthy, but also taking preventative measures against chronic diseases. And hey, maybe you're in your 30s. I think most of the people that listen to this, they're going to be in their late 30s, the 40s, and 50s. Your nutrition is like the medicine that you want. You don't want to be relying on prescription pills and, this vaccine and that vaccine and this. Like, those things might happen. You might need to take those things, but take it into your own hands and think of eating food as medicine. What we put in our body is going to have such a huge impact on the way we look, the way we perform, and the way we feel. So hope you guys enjoyed this one. This is part 2, going deep into the nutrition habits, and then we're going to continue on with our 5 pillars. Share this episode if you think you need to help out a friend who just needs to know a little bit about their nutrition, and share this podcast, because the more we help more people, the more lives we can save. And if you guys need more guidance on your strength training, on how to implement these nutrition protocols, this is exactly what we do with our clients here at Training for Warrior Saga. You can reach out to us at tfwsaga.com, and we would see if you guys are a good fit. Coach Cory signing out. Beastin'.